Sean Kingston was just 16 years old when he was discovered on MySpace, and with some persistence, he was signed to a record contract. His debut album was a banger with numerous top-charting hits, including the 2007 song Beautiful Girls. But it didn't take long for people to get suspicious. Was he lying about being raised in Jamaica? Does he really have 10 women that he keeps in rotation? Sit back, relax, and grab a bag of RRG beef jerky because we're about to dive deeper into Sean Kingston's life and find out what really got in the way of his career. Sean Anderson, better known as Sean Kingston, was born on February 3, 1990. He and his two siblings were primarily raised by their mom, Janice Turner, in Miami. She was a single mother and a business owner who also worked a few odd jobs. Sean was the youngest of his siblings and always had a love for music, which wasn't surprising since he's the grandson of Jack Ruby, the Jamaican producer who worked with Bob Marley and Burning Spear. As Sean gravitated towards music, he also began rebelling in school. His mom told the Miami New Times she thought their family needed a change of scenery to keep Sean on track, so they packed up and moved to Kingston, Jamaica when he was 5. Sean told Blues and Soul website that while in Jamaica, he got to connect with his grandfather on a deeper level. Sean said, "He'd often sit me down and just be like, 'Yo, this industry is crazy and you gotta keep focused. You gotta keep God first.'" In a subsequent interview with MTV, Sean said he would go to the studio with his grandfather and they would vibe out together. He also said he had a front row seat to witness how his grandfather created songs for so many musical legends. It's a sweet story, but it's also a lie. Sean's grandfather passed away in 1989, and Sean was born 1 year later in 1990. There's absolutely no way he was in the studio with his grandfather or even having the conversations he claimed they had. His family moved back to Miami in 1999, where Sean continued acting out in class. According to the Miami New Times, he was constantly fighting and getting tossed out of school. With no other options, his mom sent him to a 5-week boot camp in Orlando. Sean said the experience made him into a better person, and the strict schedule provided him with the structure he really needed. Upon his release from boot camp, he continued to get in trouble, so he was sent back and forth between Miami and Ocho Rios, Jamaica, where he had relatives. As his mom noticed his desire to create music was getting stronger, she purchased him the equipment he needed to bring his dreams alive. Right before his 15th birthday, his entire life changed. His mom was sentenced to 2.5 years in a federal facility for tax evasion and bank fraud. His sister was somehow connected to the case and was sentenced to probation. But after his sister failed to answer her phone while she was under court-ordered monitoring, she was locked up for 4 months. While his mom and sister were away, their family lost everything. Sean told Blues and Soul website he went to live with other family members. He became so unruly that he eventually decided to leave and live on his own. He was homeless for a while and cut grass and performed other odd jobs in order to make extra cash. He also focused more on his music because he knew that was the only way he could save his family. After getting cheated on by a girl he described as the most beautiful girl in school, he wrote the song Beautiful Girls and began reaching out to various musicians on MySpace. Sean told MTV he messaged Dr. Dre and Swizz Beatz, but they blew him off. He also reached out to J.R. Rodham, the producer responsible for Rihanna's song SOS. When J.R. didn't respond, Sean copy-pasted the same message and sent it to him 3 times a day for a few weeks. Finally, J.R.'s brother responded on his behalf, and the rest is history. As the first artist signed to J.R.'s Beluga Heights record label, Sean moved out to Los Angeles and stayed with his older brother who was already living on the West Coast. Sean and J.R. then put the finishing touches on Beautiful Girls, which includes a sample of Stand By Me, and they also completed Sean's self-titled debut album. Beautiful Girls was released in 2007 and hit #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. Take You There was another Hot 100 hit, and 17-year-old Sean was on top of the world. A second album entitled Tomorrow was released in 2009 and included features by Wyclef Jean and Good Charlotte. At this point, his mom and sister had both been released from incarceration, and Sean was ready to share his newfound wealth. According to the Miami New Times, he splurged on a Bentley for his mom and bought her a new house. Perhaps Sean leaped into those expensive purchases too soon, because following the release of his second album, things began to unravel. In 2010, a 19-year-old woman accused him and some of his associates of taking advantage of her in a Seattle hotel room. Sean admitted they had an encounter, but he said it was consensual.
And let me remind you, this same girl tried to sue Pretty Ricky like 2 months before, like a couple months before me. I'm saying, so she's already known for in Seattle, Washington, as a girl that's on the come up. She had 6 different stories.
Wow.
She had 6 different stories. The police was like, bro, let's go. Like, I'm not even, like, you know what I'm saying? So
eventually, the charges were dropped due to the accuser's inconsistent story. And then in 2011, while riding a jet ski with a female friend in Miami, Sean miscalculated how high the tide had risen.
Singer Sean Kingston is in a Miami hospital after crashing a jet ski into a bridge. The Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission says Kingston and a female passenger were injured when the watercraft hit the Palm Island Bridge yesterday.
He and his friend were catapulted into the water, and Sean was knocked unconscious. His friend's injuries weren't reported, but sources stated Sean was in critical condition and spent 11 days in the hospital. He thought he was getting better until he felt a pain in his chest. He was diagnosed with a torn aorta and had to undergo emergency open heart surgery. From there, it seemed like trouble followed him wherever he went. In February 2012, the IRS hit him with a bill for $131,000 in unpaid taxes. According to TMZ, the IRS also obtained a lien on Sean's property, which meant if he didn't pay, he would lose his home. 2 months later, in April 2012, after falling behind on his and his sister's Maserati payments, the finance company ordered him to pay $3,500 in back payments, plus an additional $29,000 for the remaining balance on his leases. Thankfully, Sean was able to pay in time to avoid the vehicles getting repossessed. 2012 was a crazy year, but 2013 was about to be even worse. Remember the woman who accused Sean and his associates of taking advantage of her in a Seattle hotel room? Even though criminal charges were dropped, the woman still filed a $5 million civil lawsuit against Sean, his bodyguard, and a member of his band. The woman said her life had been ruined following the encounter.
my mom was like, no, we're going to fight it. And I was like, Mom, listen, you go through all that, you're going to have to spend more money on lawyers, you're going to have to go through. I said, listen, man, just give her $100,000. I'm saying I just paid it off just to get it. But it's sad because anybody can go through this. Whoa.
He released his third album entitled Back to Life in September 2013. The album featured various popular musicians such as Nicki Minaj, T.I., Chris Brown, and 2 Chainz, to name a few. Unfortunately, this album wasn't as successful as the first 2. Many suspected that as his popularity decreased, Sean's money began to dwindle as well. In March 2014, TMZ reported Sean's G-Wagon and his Bentley were both repossessed after he fell behind on payments. 5 months later, a New York jeweler slapped him with a suit for failure to pay for jewelry that was given to him from 2008 through 2013. A judge later sided in the jeweler's favor and awarded the company a default judgment of $356,000. That wasn't the only jeweler he owed. In November 2015, a Los Angeles-based company accused Sean of owing them $225,000 for a watch they gave him. According to TMZ, Sean reportedly stopped making payments on the watch because he didn't think it was worth the amount the company was charging him. And then there was a jeweler in Florida who gave Sean a Rolex watch worth $59,000. Sean paid for some of it, but skipped out on the balance of $25,000. A judge later ordered Sean to pay up. In July 2016, he got his chains snatched at a West Hollywood club. Sources told TMZ the chains were worth an estimated $300,000. There were rumors that Meek Mill accused some of the game's affiliates of being involved in the chain snatching, which started a big, messy social media beef.
Sean Kingston's mama got on Twitter and asked for the jewelry back. Right?
Yes, that's correct.
I'm not making this up, am I?
That's the first we heard of it, too, knowing that he got robbed because his mom actually took to social media.
We saw the tweets from Mama Kingston 1 at game asking for your jewelry back.
But in the end, the case was closed because Sean stopped cooperating with authorities. You would think that at this point, Sean would stay away from anything having to do with fancy jewelry, but that wasn't the case. In January 2017, a New York jewelry company claimed Sean and his mom agreed to pay $302,000 for 9 high-end pieces. But according to the company, Sean paid for the items with 2 checks that later bounced. The judge issued a default judgment in favor of the jeweler. It was around this time people started to notice that Sean was becoming more popular for his legal issues than his music. No one was even surprised when it was reported that he got into it with the Migos in Las Vegas, and one of Sean's associates got locked up for firing a shot in the air during the commotion. Thankfully, no one was hurt. Sean was back to his old ways in 2017 when a Florida jeweler accused him of bouncing a check to purchase a Rolex. The jeweler tried to collect the debt for 4 years, but when he was unsuccessful, he took the matter to court. The results of the case are unknown. Sean was quiet for a few years and stayed out of the news, up until December 2020 when a warrant was issued for him after he failed to pay a jewelry tab of $45,000. According to TMZ, he was facing 3 years behind bars if convicted. As of this video, the status of the case is unclear. Sean got back to making music in 2021. He announced he would be releasing a 4th album called Deliverance under his own label, Time Is Money Entertainment. He also teamed up with G Herbo for the track Darkest Times and Blink-182 drummer Travis Barker for a song called Love Is Wonderful. While we're waiting for his 4th album to drop, Sean has his hands full. While chatting with the Lip Service podcast, he admitted he has a 10-woman rotation and prefers to have unprotected intimacy with all of them. And on that note, we'll just wish Sean the best. Let us know your thoughts on what happened to Sean Kingston. And thanks for watching RRG.